Final Fantasy is one of the most beloved video game franchises ever. Spanning over 30 years of history, dozens of games to include spin-offs and sequels, there is something for everybody in this franchise. From the futuristic worlds of Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 13 to the classic fantasy feel from games like Final Fantasy 4, 6, and 9, there is something for everybody. I'm Kyle Malone, and I'm joined by the editor-in-chief of LRMonline.com, Joseph Jammer Medina, and this is LRM Ranks It. Welcome to LRM Ranks It. If you have watched us before, thank you. If you're new to the show, guess what? This is the first episode of a brand new format for the series. That doesn't mean you shouldn't go and check out some of the other videos from the past. Definitely do that. But we're going to try something new, something different. Let us know in the comments below what you think about this format. It's going to be a lot faster on the videos, and you'll still get the in-depth conversation, but that'll be on the podcast. You can find that podcast on the Los Fanboys channel, wherever you get podcasts, including iTunes and SoundCloud. So be sure to check that out. Make sure you guys subscribe to the LRM Online YouTube channel, as well as give us a good thumbs up and hit that share button to share us with your friends and family, even your worst enemies. You might turn them into a friend. So today we're talking about Final Fantasy, one of the most important video game franchises in my life. So we're doing our top three. These are the three that mean the most to us. These are the three that are our favorites. This is completely subjective. If your favorite didn't make the list, go ahead and tell us what's on your list in the comments below.
Hey there, Kyle. Thanks so much for having me on this episode of LRM Ranks It, where we get to talk about Final Fantasy. This is one of those seminal RPG franchises for many gamers out there, including myself, and it really played a big role in my love of video games growing up. So really happy to be here to talk Final Fantasy, so let's get to ranking.
Coming in at number 3 for me is Final Fantasy VI. Now, I know a lot of you put this as your number 1, and that's cool. That's fine. I get it. It's an amazing game. The story of this game was absolutely insane, given that, just about halfway through it, you lose. Your team loses. And for a young gamer who's used to all the success of platformers and action RPGs like Legend of Zelda, it's kind of weird to lose, and I really appreciated that. Some of the drawbacks for Final Fantasy VI is the large amount of characters when you're a young RPG gamer. Maybe it's your first or second time around. Having that much going on can kind of seem overwhelming, but they did have some really good stories to go with it. I think this game really deserves a remake, but not an HD live action type remake that Final Fantasy VII is getting, but more in the art style of, say, Bravely Default. I would love to see some updated graphics like that. Little chibi characters I think would work real well for this game, and I hope to see that one day. So you listening, Square Enix? Make it happen. Final Fantasy VI Redux or something.
Well, I can't really fault you for putting Final Fantasy VI in your top 3, but I can fault you for putting it at your number 3. So spoiler alert, it's going to be a bit higher for me. But what are you going to do? Anyways, my number 3 is one I'm currently replaying right now on the Switch, and of course that's Final Fantasy IX. Now this bad boy was one giant homage to all the other Final Fantasy games that came before it, and as such, they nixed the more realistic look in favor of kind of an SD style, in keeping with the older games in the franchise. And they brought things back to the medieval inspiration of old, which was a nice change of pace from the futuristic settings of the previous two. More than anything, though, this one really captures the true spirit of high adventure I hadn't seen in the series since. While the story is epic, it's never weighty and never overly convoluted, which is, once again, something we kind of haven't gotten back to. The characters are fun and likable, and us getting a lead that's more like Han Solo than Kylo Ren, it was pretty nice. If you look back at the last two games in the franchise, 7 and 8, they were a bit on the moody side, and it was nice to just sort of pull back from that. All in all, it's a game that just makes me feel really good, and I can't emphasize how important that is for a piece of escapism.
So Final Fantasy IX is a great game, Jammer. I absolutely loved it when I played through it the first time. I've actually only played through it twice, but I do have it on PlayStation Network, and I've thought about revisiting it again. I could pop it on my PSP, carry it in my pocket, and try that out. But my number 2-ish is going to be Final Fantasy 12. And the reason why I love Final Fantasy 12 so much is it's the perfect blend of the active time battle system with more action RPG elements. The fact that you get to run around with your characters during fights and their placement can affect spells that are being cast against them, or where you're hitting the bad guys at, where you're hitting your enemies at can do more damage. It adds an extra element to it while still maintaining that Final Fantasy feel. When it first came out, it was a beautiful game. The graphics were amazing on the PlayStation 2. Really took a step up from Final Fantasy X, which did look good, but this looked better. The worst part about Final Fantasy 12 is Vaughn. Ash and Bosch should have been the main characters. I've read that Vaughn was actually created for Western audiences, but I don't know anybody on the Western audience side that really likes him. It was a great series, decent story, real Star Wars-ish, some people have said, and I can kind of see that. Great mechanics, absolutely loved it. The quickening system was fun. A lot of really good things to go into it. The only real drawback, like I said, was Vaughn. So some of you guys may have caught that I said number 2-ish goes to Final Fantasy 12 because I think it also shares number 2 spot with Final Fantasy 15. And yes, I am breaking my own rules, Jammer, and that's okay. It's my show. My show. No, I love Final Fantasy 15. The relationships with the characters are absolutely great. Noctis and his bodyguard / brothers, there's nothing like that in Final Fantasy 15. And I actually think Arden is one of the best bad guys in the entire franchise. His methods and his motivation are absolutely just terrific, and I love him. I think he's a great bad guy, and yeah, I do. I'm slotting 12 and 15 together.
I reject your breaking of your own rules. Why make the rules if you're just gonna throw them out the window? Now, admittedly, I can't really speak to either of those games because I haven't played any of them. Just to let you guys know, I actually haven't played anything beyond 10-2. So keep that in mind when I go into my list a bit. But anyways, I am looking forward to playing 12 for the first time when it hits the Switch. But enough of that, let's get to my number 2, which is Final Fantasy X. I know, Kyle, you're not a fan of this one, but this is such a pivotal game in the franchise, it really can't be ignored. It nixed the overworld maps, it added voice acting, and it brought in full 3D environments for the first time ever. It's a gorgeous, Asian-inspired design, and it's something really to behold. Its story, while a bit overly serious at times, is kind of what I was looking for when I was in high school, which was around the time this game came out, so it was perfect for me. But what I appreciated most out of this game was its battle system. It gave players the ability to switch out their characters mid-battle, which added a whole new unparalleled dynamic to the franchise. They also axed the active time battle system, which had been a series staple for God knows how many games. It allowed players to fully strategize their moves, and it even had like little icons at the top that helped you strategize who moved when. Now, in a series that was in danger of growing stale after so many entries, this was the evolution it needed to stay relevant. That being said, fuck Blitzball.
Yes, I agree. Blitzball sucks, and Final Fantasy X is definitely not one of my favorite games. Before we get to our number ones, make sure you guys are checking out all the great content every day at lrmonline.com. Make sure you guys are checking out the YouTube page. We got a lot of great celebrity interviews from Gig, as well as LRM Ranks It, and some new stuff coming up. Jammer recently started doing reaction videos. Don't forget to check out the Los Fanboys podcast channel wherever you get podcasts for great podcasts, not broadcasts. I guess they're kind of like broadcasts, but make sure you check out the great shows like Breaking Geek Radio from Nick Dahl and Brendan Jones. Make sure you're checking out Los Fanboys podcast itself, and that Cantina, my weekly Star Wars column, is going through a once a month podcast called Last Call, where we're reviewing Star Wars movies in chronological order. Let's get into our number ones. Number 1 for me is Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII's the absolute king for me. Great story, great characters, decent relationships, fun battle system. Even though there was some glitches with the game as far as like effects that certain materia or armor would have on your stats, I got through that. I absolutely love the game. It's amazing to sit there and pull off some ridiculously powerful attacks like with Knights of the Round and then Mime and just kind of sit the controller down and walk away and be back in 25 minutes. Absolutely love the game. I cannot wait for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm a little upset that they're going with an action RPG style, but I think if they use Kingdom Hearts 3 as an inspiration for the battle system, I think it could go quite well, especially with button mapping, and I'm really interested in how you're going to switch between the characters and things like that. I can't imagine fighting Emerald Weapon or Ruby Weapon live action RPG style. It's going to be kind of hectic. But Final Fantasy VII, my absolute number one. I love it, I love it, I love it. What do you think, Jammer?
Okay, let's admit it. At the end of the day, these lists are totally irrational. At least from my perspective, a lot of this has to do with the nostalgia and the warm fuzzy feelings that the games give you upon revisiting, reminding you of the much simpler times. Such is also the case with me for Final Fantasy VI. Personally, I'd put it higher than Final Fantasy VII easily for a couple of reasons. First of all, objectively, it came out at a time when developers had mastered the art of pixel design, so it holds up amazingly well because it came at sort of the peak of a specific type of visual style. Final Fantasy VII, on the other hand, came during the infancy of 3D games, so it doesn't hold up nearly as well. It's like trying to match up the highest point of one visual against the lowest point of another. But most importantly, honestly, this was my first. It was my first foray into the standard JRPG and became the metric by which every other game was measured for me. The battle system is fairly standard in terms of Final Fantasy, but its story was top-notch. I mean, how often do you play a game where the bad guy accomplishes his goal? It was a twist I didn't see coming, and that whole third act of bringing the world back from its destroyed state is the stuff of legends. And who can forget that pivotal, amazing opera house scene? Every now and then, I still kind of hum that sort of tune in my head out of nowhere. So between its creation at the height of the 16-bit era, its amazing story, and it being my first Final Fantasy / JRPG ever, apart from Pokemon, but I don't count that, I can't really help but put it as my number one entry in the franchise. Final Fantasy VI, if you haven't played it, maybe you should wait for a remake, because there's really no good remake out there outside of the Game Boy Advance version, which is kind of old at this point, so maybe just wait. Anyway, check it out.
Can't argue with that too much, Jammer. It's a great pick. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like I said, make sure you guys are subscribing, liking, and sharing. Share. Spread the love. Let us know what you think in the comments below about this new format, and also what you guys think about our list, and tell us what's on your list. I'm Kyle Malone. Thanks for watching LRM Ranks It. Hey everybody, did you like what you just watched? Do you want to see more? Check out the other great videos available here on the LRM Online YouTube channel. Also, go check out our website, lrmonline.com, to see all the great stories that we publish every day.